Hi, my name is Emma Carter. I'm 20. And the last time I saw my parents, they told my grandmother to sit still at a bench in the Oregon station while they went to check in for a bus. But what gutted me, what ripped a hole straight through my chest, was the way my mom, my own mother, leaned in and whispered, "Don't make a scene, Emma. She won't even notice we're gone." And then they walked away, leaving her, leaving me, like it was nothing. Hey, if this hits home for you already, smash that like button and subscribe. More twists are coming your way. What they didn't know was that I'd followed Grandma Rose for years like a shadow, that I knew her better than they ever did. And tucked inside the worn purse she clutched that day was something they thought had been destroyed a long time ago. How did I go from being the quiet daughter who never questioned a thing to the girl staring down her own parents across a lawyer's desk? It started with the flickering buzz of old fluorescent lights, the faint smell of engine grease and burnt pretzels, and my grandmother's trembling hand looped through my arm. The Oregon station was packed that afternoon, families yelling, babies wailing. Somewhere, a street saxophonist played a slow, mournful tune that didn't fit the chaos around us. Grandma Rose wore her usual pale blue coat, buttoned all the way up even though it was warm out. Her gray hair was pinned back into a crooked twist, and her eyes, milky from Parkinson's, kept darting to the arrivals board like she was searching for something long lost. We were headed to Medford. At least, that's what they told me. But something about the way my dad, James, kept checking his phone made my skin crawl. He wasn't nervous. He was impatient. And my mom, Linda, she just kept dabbing under her eyes like she was allergic to the air. "Stay here," Dad said, nudging Grandma gently toward a bench. "We'll check in and come right back." Grandma nodded, smiling faintly like a child being promised candy. "That's nice, James. I like this place. So busy." My fingers twitched at my sides. Something in my chest tightened, a knot pulling itself into a noose. "We'll only be a minute," Mom added, shooting me a quick glance, one that didn't match her words. "Emma, come with us." I didn't move. She leaned in, voice dropping to a hiss. "Don't make a scene. She won't even notice we're gone." That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a layover, it was a setup. They weren't checking in. They were checking out. I looked back at Grandma. She'd pulled out a little tin of mints from her purse, fumbling with the lid. Her hands shook so badly it clattered to the floor. I knelt to pick it up, the tin warm from her touch. "Here, Grandma," I said, my voice barely audible. "Thank you, sweet pea," she whispered. "You've always been good to me." The scent of her lavender lotion hit me like a punch. For a split second, I was 5 again, curled up in her lap, listening to her hum while Mom barked at someone over the phone in the next room. Dad and Mom were already walking away. I stood up, eyes fixed on their backs. They didn't glance back, not once, just kept walking, past the kiosks, past the rows of travelers, until they vanished into the crowd like they'd never existed. Minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Still no sign of them. Grandma had stopped asking where they were. She just sat there, quietly tapping her foot in rhythm with the saxophone echoing down the tiled hallway. My heart pounded against my ribs, hard, loud, like it was trying to get out. I scanned the crowd. No Dad, no Mom. Just strangers brushing past us, rolling suitcases, calling out boarding numbers, laughing, shouting, oblivious. And then it hit me. They weren't coming back. Not now. Not ever. I glanced at Grandma. She smiled up at me, like she didn't know she'd just been abandoned. Or maybe she did. Her fingers curled around mine. "Do you smell that?" she asked suddenly. "Your grandfather used to say this station smelled like fresh engine oil and goodbye." I swallowed hard, blinking back the burn behind my eyes. What were they hiding? What did they think they could erase by leaving her here? Because whatever it was, it didn't disappear with their footsteps. It was still sitting here, right next to me, clutching my hand. I didn't sleep that night. Back at the house, everything felt too quiet, too still, as if the walls themselves were trying not to breathe. The ticking of the old brass clock above the mantel kept me awake. Each second landed like a hammer against my skull. Grandma's purse sat on the kitchen table where I left it. I couldn't bring myself to touch it for hours. Not after what happened at the station, but something inside me kept whispering, "Look again. You missed something." I moved like a ghost, barefoot on cold tile, every creak of the floorboard sounding louder than it should have. I unzipped the purse slowly. Her scent hit me first, lavender and the faintest trace of mothballs, receipts, tissues, a rusted compact mirror, and then, folded between two crocheted handkerchiefs, I found it. A letter. The paper was yellowed, soft at the edges like it had been touched 1,000 times. My name was on the front. My real name, in Grandma Rose's handwriting, delicate, shaky, but unmistakable. I sat down, heart thudding. The envelope was already unsealed. Inside was one page, front and back, written in blue ink. The words swam before my eyes as I read. Emma, if you're reading this, then you already know something is wrong. I blinked. My hand tightened around the paper. They want what's mine. Your father, your mother, they think I forgot where I put the will. But I didn't. I made a copy. I hid it. There's a safe deposit box in town. The key is somewhere safe. Or it was. I don't remember where now. But someone might. Ask Henry. Henry? Uncle Henry? I sat back, the chair creaking under my weight. The kitchen felt suddenly colder, the kind of cold that settles in your bones and makes you feel like you're being watched. The rest of the letter was more disjointed, ramblings, mentions of dates, warnings not to trust James. One part was underlined twice. If they say it's for your good, don't believe them. Protect what's yours. I stared at those words until my vision blurred. What the hell was she talking about? The will? A deposit box? I didn't even know Grandma had a safe, or a lawyer, or the presence of mind to write a letter like this. And yet, here it was, in my hands. I refolded the page, slower this time. My fingers lingered over the crease like it would answer the questions ricocheting inside my skull. I tucked the letter into my sweater pocket just as I heard a car door slam outside. My pulse spiked, footsteps on gravel. Then the front door creaked open. Emma? Dad's voice. I shoved the purse back into the cabinet and stood up fast. Too fast. My knee knocked into the chair, sending it scraping across the floor. He walked in a moment later, wearing his navy windbreaker and the same look he always wore when he was about to deliver bad news with a smile. He glanced around the kitchen. You're still up. I didn't answer. My hand stayed hidden in the front pocket of my sweater. I figured you'd be in bed by now, he said, stepping closer. It's been a long day. His eyes scanned the room. Too long on the purse, too short on me. Where's Mom? I asked. He shrugged. Sleeping. She was upset. That made me want to laugh. Upset? After what they did? She didn't even say goodbye, I said. His expression didn't change, but something in his jaw twitched. She wouldn't have remembered it anyway, Em. You saw how she was. I stared at him. You left her there. We made a decision. He said it so calmly, like we were talking about a broken appliance, not a human being. She trusted you, I said, my voice low. His shoulders stiffened. She's not the same woman you knew. Your grandmother hasn't been herself for a long time. You think this is easy for us? You didn't even look back. His eyes finally met mine, cold, unmoving. She'll be better off, he said, somewhere with care, not cluttering the house. Cluttering, that word landed hard, like a slap. I felt the letter in my pocket like it had grown teeth. What if she didn't forget? I said. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? What if she remembered more than you think? He stepped closer, too close. Emma, what are you talking about? I shrugged. Just a thought. He didn't blink. You've been through a lot today, he said slowly. Don't let your mind go places it shouldn't. I held my ground, barely. Good night, Dad. He lingered a second longer, then turned and walked down the hallway, his footsteps thudding against the hardwood like closing doors behind him. I exhaled, finally. As soon as his door shut, I grabbed the letter again and ran upstairs, locking my bedroom door behind me. Henry. I hadn't seen Uncle Henry since I was 12. Some family argument, some fight over money. I never knew the details. But if Grandma trusted him enough to leave a clue in her final letter, then I had to find him. I searched online for an address. There were too many Henry Carters in Oregon. But then, one listing caught my eye. H. Carter, organic produce vendor, Rosebend, OR. Grandma had a cousin in Rosebend. I remembered that name. I wrote it down on a sticky note and taped it inside the back of my phone case. Then I placed the letter in an empty book on my shelf, an old biology textbook no one would ever touch, and shut it carefully. My mind raced with every worst-case scenario I could think of. If Dad found this letter, if he even suspected what I knew, I pulled the blanket over my head and tried to pretend the world wasn't caving in, but something else kept scratching at my brain, one line from the letter that felt out of place. They think I forgot, but I didn't. The safe matters. The key. My stomach turned. What if someone else knew? What if Dad already knew? And this whole trip was just to buy time to make it all disappear. The door creaked downstairs. I froze. A shadow moved past my bedroom door. Then silence. I didn't sleep the night before, again. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Grandma on that bench, her blue coat blending into the cold metal seat, her hands curled around her purse like it was all she had left in the world. It was the way she looked around, quietly, hopefully, that haunted me most. That morning, I dragged myself to the dorm library, trying to act normal. My roommate Danny had already left for class, thank God. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to lie. I'd barely sat down when my phone buzzed on the desk. Dad. I stared at the screen, stomach flipping. He never called during the day, never needed to. I didn't answer. 30 seconds later it buzzed again. Emma? His voice snapped the moment I picked up. You need to come home. I swallowed, glancing around the library. The girl across from me looked up from her laptop like she could sense the tension leaking from my side of the table. Is something wrong? I asked, already knowing the answer. She's your responsibility now, he said flatly. My grip tightened around the phone. What do you mean? A pause. A breath. You think you're smarter than me, huh? His tone darkened. Digging through her things, reading letters that weren't meant for you. The words hit like a slap. He knew. You went through her purse? He added, voice rising. Jesus, Emma, I thought I raised you better. I stood up too fast. The chair screeched against the tile floor. Someone nearby shushed me, but I didn't care. My heart was pounding so loud I barely heard anything else. I'm not coming back, I said. You abandoned her. There was silence on the other end. Then came the twist. You think this is about her? He said slowly. You don't understand the stakes. I have a partner involved in this, people who don't ask questions nicely. My breath caught. What partner? He chuckled, dry, humorless. Oh, now you're interested. My chest tightened. I pressed the phone harder to my ear, half expecting it to burn my skin. Who are you talking about? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Come home, he said. I'll explain everything, but if you keep pushing... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I hung up, my fingers trembling so hard I dropped the phone onto the floor. It landed with a dull slap, screen facing up, still lit with his name. I sank back into my seat, ignoring the stares, the whispers. He was scared, not just mad, not just manipulative, scared. And that made me even more terrified. I opened my laptop, searched every public record I could think of. Grandma's name, James Carter, property transfers, medical power of attorney. Nothing. Either they'd buried it deep or someone else already had. I rubbed my eyes. Everything felt blurry, heavy. A memory surfaced from nowhere, one I hadn't thought about in years. I was 9. Sitting at the edge of the backyard swing set, watching my dad pour gasoline into a mower that didn't need it. Grandma was visiting. She'd brought butter cookies in a tin, the same way she always did. Mom was tense that day, whispering behind closed doors. Dad didn't come inside once. When Grandma left, I overheard her say, "That boy's still angry about what I kept." And Mom answered, "Well, maybe he should have asked instead of assuming he was owed." Back then, I didn't understand. Now, it felt like a piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was solving. Back in the present, I packed my bag and left campus without a word. I couldn't stay still. I couldn't pretend like the letter wasn't burning a hole in my thoughts. As I waited for the bus back to the house, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Mom. The message was short. He didn't mean to yell. "We just want what's best for everyone. Please come home." The word everyone made my stomach lurch. Was I part of everyone? Was Grandma? Or was this just damage control? The bus pulled up. I hesitated for one breathless second. Then I climbed on. The ride was quiet except for the engine's low rumble and the occasional screech of brakes at red lights. Outside the window, Portland passed in a smear of gray and green. I kept picturing that letter, the way it felt in my hand, like Grandma had written it while shaking, not just from Parkinson's but from fear. When I stepped off the bus, the wind hit me hard, sharp, wet. It carried the scent of rain and pavement and something older, something like tension. I walked straight home, clutching my coat tighter. The house was still, too still. No TV, no music, just the slow creak of a hallway fan and the hum of the refrigerator. I opened the front door. Dad was waiting in the living room. "Nice of you to come," he said without standing. I didn't answer. He stood slowly, arms crossed, gaze narrowed. "You found the letter." So it wasn't a question. I nodded once. "You think you know everything now?" he asked, stepping closer. "You don't. You don't know what that woman kept from us, what she owed this family." "She didn't owe you anything," I snapped. His eyes flashed. "She lied to us. For years," he hissed, "about what she owned, what she planned. You don't know what it feels like to be left out of your own mother's legacy." "I know what it feels like to be left behind at a bus station," I shot back. He fell silent. The hallway stretched long behind him, empty. I heard a creak upstairs, a door maybe. I took a step back. "You said you had a partner," I said quietly. "Who is it?" He blinked, just once. Then his voice dropped. "That's not your concern." The threat was there, just beneath the surface. I clenched my fists. "You should stop digging," he added, "before someone gets hurt." I looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see a father. I saw a man scrambling to control a story he'd already lost. But before I could speak, the front door behind me opened again. Mom stepped in, holding 2 grocery bags. She saw us frozen there and paused, mouth parting slightly. Then her gaze shifted to me, and for a split second, her expression changed. Not guilt, not confusion, something else. Recognition. Like she knew I was getting closer than I should. The second Mom's eyes met mine. I knew she knew. She didn't say anything, not out loud, but her fingers gripped the grocery bags tighter. One of them sagged open, revealing a bag of frozen peas and an upside-down greeting card. But it wasn't what she brought in that caught my attention. It was what she didn't say. No "Hi, sweetheart," no smile, no shock to see me standing tense in the living room with Dad only inches away. Just silence. And silence from my mother was always louder than any scream. I stood frozen, caught between her eyes, and the edge of the letter still burning in my thoughts. "You good?" she asked casually, voice soft like it always was when she wanted to pretend things were fine. I nodded. "Yeah, I was just leaving." Dad didn't look at me. His arms stayed crossed, eyes locked on some invisible point just past the staircase. I walked past them both, heart racing so loud it drowned out the hallway fan. The second I got outside, I broke into a sprint. The sky above Portland was bruised purple, low clouds dragging across the skyline like torn bandages. The air smelled like damp earth and exhaust. I didn't stop running until I hit the sidewalk 3 blocks away, bent over, gasping. My lungs felt tight. My ears buzzed. But in that moment, I didn't care about the ache in my legs or the stitch in my side. I only cared about one thing: finding Grandma. I flagged down the next rideshare I could get, palms still shaking as I opened the app. The station wasn't far, but every second felt like it might crush me. She'd been left there almost 24 hours ago. No coat, no idea where we were going. Barely able to stand without help. What if she wandered off? What if no one helped her? What if someone took her? The driver didn't say much, just a polite nod as I slid into the back seat. The car smelled like pine air freshener and lingering fast food. I kept glancing at the street signs, willing them to move faster. When we finally pulled up to the Oregon station, my stomach dropped. It looked the same. Same buzz of fluorescent lights, same blur of travelers and suitcases and public announcements echoing from above. But I didn't see her. I jumped out, eyes scanning every row of metal benches, every corner of the platform. My shoes squeaked against the wet concrete as I ran. "Excuse me," I called to a man in a red vest sweeping near the entrance. "Did you see an older woman here? Gray hair, blue coat? She might have been here yesterday, alone." He shook his head. "Lady, we get dozens of folks like that. I can check the back, but..." His voice trailed off. I nodded quickly. Please." While he disappeared through a side door, I paced the edge of the waiting area, trying not to scream. I could still see her in my mind, knees together, hands trembling around her purse, eyes scanning the crowd with quiet hope. "Emma?" The voice was so faint, I almost missed it. I spun. There, tucked between two worn benches near the vending machines, was Grandma, still in her coat, still clutching her purse. Her hair was messier now, and she looked smaller, like she'd been shrinking by the hour, but her eyes lit up when they met mine. I ran to her. "Oh my God, Grandma!" She smiled, dazed but somehow still composed. "You came back." I knelt in front of her, gripping her hands. They were cold. Her skin felt papery. "I'm sorry. I should have come sooner." She blinked slowly, lips trembling. Then her gaze drifted to the side. "They said they'd be right back." "I know," I whispered, "but they're not coming." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. We sat there in silence for a moment, the world spinning around us in slow motion. Then she leaned forward slightly, her voice low and hoarse. "The key?" I looked at her, startled. "What key?" She licked her lips, eyes scanning the station like someone might be listening. "Henry has it." I gave it to him. My breath caught. Uncle Henry. She was lucid, for once fully here. Despite the cold, the noise, the disorientation, she remembered. "You gave Henry the key?" I asked. She nodded. He was always the honest one." I glanced around, my heartbeat drumming hard now. "What key is it, Grandma? What does it open?" Her eyes drifted shut for a second, then reopened. "The box. It has everything. They can't find it." Another puzzle piece. The safe deposit box she mentioned in the letter, the one Dad was so desperate to locate, the one she swore she didn't forget. "I need to get you out of here," I whispered. I stood and helped her to her feet, wrapping her arm around mine. She moved slow, each step shaky like the ground didn't fully trust her legs, but she kept going. The rideshare driver had already left, so I walked her out to the corner and called another. It took 12 minutes to arrive, and I spent every one of them glancing over my shoulder. As we waited, Grandma leaned her head against my shoulder, eyes half closed. "I thought you forgot me," she said softly. "I never will." She smiled, barely, but it was real. Once in the car, I gave the address for my dorm instead of going back home. I didn't trust them. Not anymore. Grandma didn't say much during the ride. She just held my hand like it was a lifeline. When we arrived, I led her upstairs, thankful Danny was still out. I helped Grandma onto my bed, wrapped her in a blanket, and handed her a cup of warm water. Then I sat on the floor beside her, heart still thudding. She'd remembered. She'd held on to the one truth they'd wanted buried, and she'd trusted me with it. But as I watched her fall asleep, her breathing shallow and uneven, one thought kept circling my mind. Who else knows Henry has that key? The sun hadn't even broken the horizon when my phone rang. I hadn't slept. Not really. Grandma was curled up in my bed, her breathing soft but uneven, like each inhale had to fight to stay. I'd sat on the floor beside her all night, my back against the side of the mattress, fingers clenched around my phone just in case something changed, in case someone came, in case she needed me. The ringtone cut through the quiet like a blade. "Mom." The screen glowed in the half-dark room. My thumb hovered over decline, but something made me answer. "Emma?" Her voice was different, thin, wet. I didn't say anything. I needed to hear your voice. I stood and stepped into the bathroom, closing the door behind me as quietly as I could. The light above the mirror flickered once before settling into a weak glow. I looked at my reflection. Pale, hollow-eyed, hair twisted into a messy knot that still smelled faintly like lavender from holding Grandma all night. "You left her," I said. Her breath hitched. "I know." There was a pause. A deep, uncomfortable silence that swelled with something heavy. Regret? Grief? Or performance? "She didn't even cry," Mom whispered. "When we walked away, she just stared at the floor." I felt my stomach twist. "She kept looking around like she was waiting for you," I said. The silence returned. "I wanted to go back," she whispered. "No, you didn't." "I did. But your father said—" "Stop," my voice cracked. "Don't put this on him." Her breath caught again. "We did it for you." My fingers curled tight around the sink's edge. I could feel the porcelain bite into my palms. "For me?" I said, quieter now. "Yes," she said. "Your future. You have no idea what's coming, Emma, what we've been trying to protect you from." "I'm not a child." "You're 20, she snapped, and for a second her voice was steel again. "You think you understand how the world works? You don't. You think saving your grandmother is going to fix this? That old woman?" I slammed my palm against the sink. "Don't," I hissed. "Don't call her that." The line went quiet again. "I used to believe you," I said. "When I was little, you tucked me in every night and told me everything would be okay, that we were a good family, that we were safe." We were. No, we weren't. I could see it now, clearer than ever, the way Mom flinched every time Grandma came over, how she'd smile too hard, grip my shoulder just a little too tightly when Rose offered to take me for ice cream or teach me how to make cookies from scratch. She hated how close we were, because Grandma never played a role. She just showed up, loved, quietly, persisted. "You think this is about love?" Mom said suddenly. "This is about survival." I felt cold all over. "Is that what Dad's partner told you?" I asked. Silence. "I saw your face," I continued. "When I mentioned the key, you knew she remembered. You knew it was still out there." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You don't know what you're doing, Emma." I ended the call. My hands were shaking again, but this time I didn't hide it. I let them tremble as I opened the bathroom door and checked on Grandma. She was still asleep, curled into a quiet ball of warmth beneath the blankets. I sank back down beside her. What was she trying to protect all these years? And why did my parents want it so badly? I thought about the letter again, the way she'd written my name like she'd known one day this would all fall apart. I remembered her saying Henry had the key. But the letter never said who knew about the box, only who didn't. And now I wasn't sure anymore. Hours passed. I made oatmeal and fed it to Grandma, one spoonful at a time. She smiled after every bite, though I wasn't sure if she remembered my name or was just glad someone cared. Around noon the rain started, a slow, steady tap against the dorm window, the kind of rain that made the world feel heavier than it already was. I stared at my phone again, rereading Mom's last message. "You'll thank us later, I promise." I didn't respond. Instead, I grabbed the envelope with the letter, tucked it into my backpack, and packed a change of clothes for both of us. Grandma watched me quietly from the bed. "Going somewhere?" she asked, voice faint. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "We're going to see someone." Her eyes drifted toward the window. "Hope it's not far." It's not, but it was. Rosebend was over 2 hours away, and the rain was only getting worse. I arranged for a car, texted Danny that I was okay, and wrapped Grandma in her thickest coat, the one that still smelled like peppermint and mothballs and a Christmas I couldn't remember. She clutched my hand the whole way down the stairs. We were halfway to the car when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity got the better of me. I hit play. It was Mom again, but this time her voice was calm, almost serene. I just wanted to say, "Good luck finding Henry, but you should know, he doesn't answer to you." Click. My breath stopped. She knew we were going. She knew where we were going, and if she knew that, who else was already on their way? Rosebend didn't look like the kind of town people found by accident, just a 2-lane road lined with crooked mailboxes and whispering pine trees. The fog clung low across the pavement like it had nowhere better to go, and the rain from earlier had left the air thick and earthy. The car ride had been mostly quiet. Grandma dozed in and out beside me, her head tilted toward the window, lips occasionally mouthing words I couldn't hear. The driver, a kind, soft-spoken man with a faded Willie Nelson sticker on the dash, finally pulled up to a gravel driveway marked only by a leaning mailbox that read H. Carter. I stared out at the small wooden house ahead. Single story, chipped blue paint, porch light blinking like it was trying to remember its job. A rusted wind chime hung from the awning, clinking faintly in the breeze. This was it, Uncle Henry's place. I helped Grandma out of the car, gently easing her weight onto my arm. Her steps were slow, unsteady, but she clung to me like muscle memory. The porch creaked beneath our feet. I knocked once. The door opened before I could knock again. Henry Carter looked exactly like I remembered. And not at all. Older, sure. His silver beard had thickened. His flannel shirt was threadbare at the collar. But his eyes hadn't changed. Still sharp, still kind, still wary. He looked at me, then at Grandma, and his entire face softened. "Edie?" he whispered. Grandma blinked, tilted her head. "You got taller," she said faintly. Henry let out a laugh that cracked mid-breath, then reached for her. "Come on in," he said, stepping aside. The warmth of the house wrapped around us instantly, wood-paneled walls, the smell of old coffee and something sweet baking. A small dog barked once from somewhere deeper inside, then went quiet. Henry guided us to a worn couch by the fireplace. Grandma sank into the cushions with a soft sigh, her eyes already drifting closed. "I didn't think I'd ever see her again," Henry said quietly, watching her. "Me neither." He turned to me. "You Emma?" I nodded. He offered a tired smile. "Your grandma wrote about you. Said you were the only one who still listened." I didn't know what to say. Henry walked into the kitchen and came back with 2 steaming mugs. He handed me one. The tea smelled like honey and lemon. I clutched it, grateful for the warmth. "She said you have the key," I finally said. Henry didn't flinch. "She tell you what it's for?" "She said, it protects what's hers." He nodded slowly. "She always was smarter than any of us gave her credit for." He walked to a small desk in the corner, pulled open the bottom drawer, and removed a tiny brass key tied to a red ribbon. "I kept it after George died," he said, turning it in his hand. "She didn't want to forget. She told me, if I lose myself, make sure it ends up in the right hands." He held the key out. I took it. It felt heavier than it looked. "You know where the box is?" I asked. Henry nodded. "Local bank. She set it up under a different name. Been paying the fee every year out of her pension." "She never told anyone else?" "No one she trusted enough." I swallowed. The weight of it all settled on my chest. "Do you know what's inside?" Henry hesitated. "No," he said, "but I know she was scared of it falling into James's hands." I looked at Grandma again. She'd curled against a pillow, one hand resting gently on her purse. "She remembered," I whispered. "Even through everything, she remembered." Henry glanced toward the window. "I don't mean to spook you," he said, voice dropping, "but you were followed." My heart stopped. "What?" "Black SUV parked across from the diner since noon. Saw it as I came in from the back pasture. They didn't get out, just waited." I stood, adrenaline rushing to my fingertips. Henry raised a hand. "They haven't come up the drive, yet." I moved to the window. The trees along the edge of the property shivered in the wind. I couldn't see the road clearly from here, but I didn't need to. They knew we were here. I turned back toward Henry. "We have to get to that box." "You will," he said. "But tonight you rest. You're both running on fumes." "I don't know if we have time." "You don't have a choice," he interrupted. "And if you want to beat James at this game, you need to stop playing it on his terms." The firmness in his voice startled me. For a moment I saw it, what Grandma must have seen in him. Someone who didn't bend when the pressure built. Someone who protected. I nodded, my breath shaky. Later that night after dinner, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and warm biscuits that tasted like something out of memory, I stood alone in the barn behind Henry's house. The air was cold and smelled like old hay and rust. In the far corner sat an old safe, covered in a thick blue tarp. Henry had mentioned it in passing. It's hers too, in a way, just older. I stared at it, wondering what else she'd left behind. What other parts of her life had been buried beneath everyone else's urgency to move on. A faint noise behind me made me turn. Just wind, but it felt wrong. I stepped outside. The trees were still. The wind had stopped, but the headlights now glinting through the trees, those didn't lie. Someone was coming. The headlights cut through the trees like knives, bright, silent, unmoving. I ducked back into the barn, heart hammering, the night air tight around my throat. Behind me, the tarp over the old safe rustled slightly in the breeze, but I couldn't afford to look at it again. Not now. I peeked through the crack in the wooden barn door. The SUV hadn't moved, but its engine rumbled low, not off, just idling, like it was waiting for a cue. They were watching, waiting, and I didn't know for what. I ran back to the house. Henry was at the sink drying a plate with the kind of care people usually reserve for china, not chipped ceramic. His head turned the second he heard the back door open. "They're here," I said. His shoulders stiffened. "Stay calm," he said, reaching beneath the cabinet and pulling out a metal toolbox. But it wasn't tools inside, just a loaded revolver and a flashlight. I stared at the weapon. "You really think? Hope we don't need it," he said, stuffing it into his jacket. "But I'm too old to pretend hope's a plan." We both looked toward the hallway, Grandma. "I'll get her," I said. She was still asleep, curled under the old quilt, her lips moving faintly like she was mumbling a dream. When I touched her shoulder, she blinked awake slowly. "Emma?" "We have to go," I whispered. She didn't ask why, just nodded and reached for my hand. I wrapped her scarf gently around her neck and helped her into her shoes. We slipped out the front door into the back fields, cutting through rows of dew-slick corn and tall grass that hissed as we passed. The SUV headlights didn't follow, but I could feel them. We reached the far side of the property, where Henry's truck sat hidden behind an old tool shed. He'd already tossed a small bag in the bed and opened the passenger door. Grandma climbed in beside him, slow and careful. I was about to follow when I saw movement by the barn, a figure, broad shoulders, fast stride. James. I froze, breath caught mid-throat. Henry saw him too. "Driver, stay, Emma. Pick now." I hesitated, then ran to the driver's side and climbed in. We sped down the dirt road, gravel spitting beneath the tires. In the rearview mirror, James shrank into the fog, but the SUV's headlights snapped on behind him and gave chase. "They're following," I said. Henry didn't answer, just tightened his grip on the wheel, knuckles pale against the leather. We hit the main road, wet asphalt, windshield wipers thudding against the drizzle. Grandma whispered beside me. "He always blamed me." I turned to her. "For what?" "For choosing George," she said. "James thought I'd pick him, but he was never gentle, never kind." The ache in my chest throbbed. Behind us, the SUV swerved into our lane, then back, gaining. Henry's jaw clenched. "They're not going to let up," I said. He took a sharp right onto a service road I didn't even see coming. "Shortcut to the post office," he said. "There's a police substation 2 blocks past it, if we can make it." If. The SUV fishtailed as it followed. I gripped the dashboard to brace myself. "We can't go to the bank now," I whispered. "Not yet," Henry said. "They'll be watching every entrance." I looked at Grandma again. Her hand rested on her purse, fingers curled protectively over the fabric. "What do they think is in the box?" I asked aloud. Henry exhaled. "The deed, her savings, maybe the insurance." "But it has to be more than that," I said. "Dad isn't just scared, he's desperate." The truck bounced over a pothole. My teeth clacked together. Behind us, the SUV finally pulled back, slowed, vanished. "Did they give up?" I asked. Henry didn't answer. He pulled into an empty grocery lot, shut the lights off, and coasted behind the building. The engine ticked in the silence. "No," Henry said finally. "They're just waiting for us to lead them to it." I swallowed. Grandma had gone quiet again. Her eyes were closed, but her hand was still wrapped around her purse, like it was the only thing that made sense. "I'm sorry," I said softly, "for dragging you into this." She opened one eye, smiled faintly. "You didn't. I walked into it the second I trusted your father to do the right thing." That hurt more than I expected. The woman who had protected me now needed me to protect her. "I want to see what's in that box," I said. Henry nodded. "We will." We spent the night in a local motel. Henry parked the truck on the far side and rotated the plates with a spare he'd kept in the glove box. Said he learned the trick years ago from a neighbor who owed money to everyone in 3 counties. The bed was lumpy. The AC groaned like it was dying. But for the first time in days, I felt something close to safety. Until morning. When I stepped out for coffee at the vending machine, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "Emma," Dad's voice rasped through the speaker. "You need to stop." I didn't say anything. He went on. "I gave you space. I let you leave with her. But this is too far." I looked up at the sky. Overcast. Damp. "You chased us," I said. "You brought people with you." "I had to. You don't know what's at stake." I laughed quietly. Try me. There was a pause. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. You don't think your name's in that will too? My fingers tightened around the phone. What? I know Rose. She plays long games. She knew one day this would happen, that you'd be the last one left who cared. You think she did all this for nothing? He exhaled. You're not just a witness, Emma. You're a threat. The call ended. I stood there, staring at the phone screen, the wind biting at my cheeks. If I was in the will, that changed everything. And if he knew that, then this chase wasn't just about control. It was about erasing evidence, including me. After Dad's call, I didn't sleep. Not even a little. I sat on the motel's sagging armchair, watching the sun smear orange across the faded wallpaper as it rose. The air smelled like old coffee and forgotten cigarettes. Grandma was still asleep, curled up on the second bed, her breathing soft but shallow. Dad's voice wouldn't leave my head. You're not just a witness, Emma. You're a threat. A threat. To him, I was dangerous because I knew the truth, or I was close enough to it that it made him sweat. I didn't know how long I stared at the window before Henry spoke. She wasn't always like this, you know. His voice was hoarse, rough from sleep or memories. I couldn't tell. I turned. He was sitting at the edge of the bed, hands folded between his knees. The light caught his face, made the creases look deeper. I believe that, I said. He glanced over at Grandma. She used to outwalk me to the mailbox every morning, said the world felt quieter in the first steps of the day. I smiled faintly. She still says that sometimes. Henry's gaze dropped. She told you about James? Only bits and pieces. He exhaled hard through his nose. It started with the land. I sat up straighter. She inherited it, Henry continued, from her father. Long before James started trying to act like it was his legacy. Grandpa wanted her to have it, said she was the only one who didn't see dirt as just dirt. I could picture it. Grandma younger, maybe in her 30s, walking those fields with muddy boots and her hands in her pockets, humming something under her breath. She wanted to keep it in the family, Henry said, but not in the way James wanted. What do you mean? He rubbed the back of his neck. After George died, James showed up less, but he started asking more. About deeds, about property, taxes. I told Rose not to trust him with any of it, not while he was so eager. He was already playing deals behind her back. I felt something inside me twist. She bailed him out once, Henry said, sold off a corner of the land to cover one of his failed projects, didn't tell anyone, just did it. That matched what I'd heard in pieces growing up, whispers of a failed real estate venture, a lawsuit, some loan that vanished. But she kept the rest, he said, and she changed her will. I blinked. She changed it? She never trusted him again, but she never told him, figured it was better to let him think he still had something to lose. That was the twist. I'd always assumed Grandma's silence was weakness, but now I saw it. It was strategy. Protection. She wasn't just forgetting. She was shielding. She gave you the key because she knew, I whispered. Henry nodded. And she knew what he'd do if he found out. I stood and walked to the window. The trees beyond the parking lot were still wet with morning rain, their leaves heavy and quiet. She said she chose George, I said, and that James never forgave her. She did, Henry replied, and James always hated him for it, thought he was soft. Thought Rose could have done better. He never got over it. No, he said, because deep down, he knew she loved George more than she ever feared James. I pressed my fingers to the cold window pane. All those years she'd carried that weight, protected her memories, her land, her truth, and me. Does James know she changed the will? I asked. I don't think so, but now that you're involved. He suspects. Henry stood, stretching out his back with a groan. We need to move. If we're going to get to that box before they do, we do it today. I turned to him. But what if it's not just the land anymore? What if there's something bigger in there? His eyes met mine. There is, he said. And that's when we heard it, a knock, not on the motel door, on the window. I turned. A woman stood outside, late 40s, raincoat, clipboard. She held up a badge through the glass. Henry swore under his breath. Damn. I opened the door cautiously. Emma Carter? She asked. Yes. I'm Detective Mara. I need to speak to you about your grandmother's estate. My pulse quickened. Henry stepped forward, shielding Grandma from view behind the curtain. What's this about? There have been several suspicious financial movements tied to James Carter, she said. We believe your grandmother's assets are involved. I stared at her. Who sent you? She didn't blink. Let's just say, someone still cares about what Rose left behind. The wind picked up again outside, and suddenly I didn't feel safe at all. Detective Mara stood there like she wasn't cold, even though the morning air was sharp enough to bite through my sleeves. Her raincoat was buttoned to the collar, hair pulled into a tight twist, and the badge she'd flashed still glinted in my peripheral vision like a threat I wasn't sure how to read. I'm not here to arrest anyone, she said, calm, controlled. I'm here because someone tipped us off about James Carter and several irregular transactions involving your grandmother's estate. Henry stood behind me, arms crossed, unmoved. I didn't answer. Not yet. Mara waited, eyes scanning the room once before settling back on me. You were named in an anonymous report, along with a bank box and a document believed to be critical. The motel room felt smaller, the air thinner. Grandma stirred on the bed, muttering something I couldn't quite hear. My throat tightened. Who filed the report? I asked. Can't say, she replied, but it came with notarized statements. One mentioned your father's attempt to forge medical documents. Henry let out a low whistle. He's dumber than I thought. I turned toward Grandma just for a second. Her fingers were twitching against the edge of the blanket, like they were grasping for something invisible. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you, Mara said. If you want protection, we can arrange that. But if you have any physical documents, deeds, records, the key, they need to be secured. I glanced at the duffel bag near the closet where Henry had tucked the key the night before. It was still there. I could feel its presence like a heartbeat. Mara stepped forward. Emma, I need your cooperation. If what you suspect is true, you're not just a potential beneficiary. You're a liability to them. Her tone softened. They won't stop until they get what they want. I looked at her, and in that moment I believed her. Not because of her badge, but because she said they, not just my father, someone else. I'll go with you, I said finally. Henry didn't like it. I could see it in the way he shifted, fingers tapping against his sleeve. I'll take the key, I added. But Grandma stays here, with Henry. Mara nodded. That's fine. We agreed to meet at the Rosebend branch office of First Northern Bank. She'd secured a search warrant for the contents of the box under Rose Harmon's alias. The sun had barely broken through the clouds as I slid into the passenger seat of her unmarked car. She didn't speak much during the drive, just hummed along to an old Bonnie Raitt song playing on low volume through the dusty speakers. My stomach churned the closer we got to the bank. This was it. Whatever Grandma had locked away, whatever she feared Dad would find, it was here. We pulled into the bank parking lot. It was early enough that the lot was mostly empty. A single crow cawed from a telephone line nearby. Mara reached into the glove box and pulled out a manila folder. Before we go in, you should see this. She handed me a photocopy of a document. James Carter's signature next to a form requesting power of attorney. The date was barely 2 months ago. He filed this after your grandmother was diagnosed with early-stage dementia, she said. But the medical certificate attached was signed by a doctor who hasn't practiced since 2016. My mouth went dry. She pulled out a second sheet, bank transaction records, multiple withdrawals over $8,000, dates that matched some of Dad's last business trips. He's been draining her savings, I whispered. Mara nodded. And now he wants the land. We walked into the bank together. A middle-aged woman behind the counter looked up, smiled politely, then straightened when Mara flashed her badge. They led us to a back room. Plain walls, too much light, the hum of fluorescent bulbs overhead. A security guard stood outside the door like he was waiting for trouble. Mara handed me the key. My fingers shook as I slid it into the lock. The box was heavier than I expected. Inside, everything was bundled in plastic folders, neat, labeled in Grandma's shaky handwriting. Deed, insurance, a photo, a letter, and at the bottom, a thick envelope marked in red. In the event of my death, to be opened by Emma Carter only. I reached for it, pulse pounding, but Mara gently touched my arm. Not yet. We do this the right way. I nodded, but my heart ached with the need to read it right now. We returned to the motel late that afternoon. Grandma was still resting. Henry was watching a ball game on mute, eyes fixed, but clearly not watching. I need to call someone, I told Mara. Just give me 5 minutes. She gave a nod and stepped outside. I took a breath, picked up my phone and dialed. Not my dad, Abby, my sister. She answered on the second ring. Emma? Her voice was shaky, surprised. Hey, I whispered. I need to ask you something. Okay. Do you remember the summer Grandma stayed with us? The year after Grandpa passed? There was a pause. Yeah, why? Did you ever hear Mom and Dad talking about ownership, deeds, anything weird? She went quiet, then slowly. Emma, I think they were planning this for years. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. What do you mean? I overheard Mom once, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She said if Grandma didn't remember, it wouldn't matter what she'd promised, that no one would believe a dying woman. My fingers curled into fists. You need to be careful, Abby added. They'll come for you too. The call ended, and Mara stepped back in, her face pale. We have a problem, she said. They know you opened the box. The motel door slammed shut behind Mara like a warning shot. They know, she said again. Someone called the bank 30 minutes after we left, asked for the manager by name, claimed to be from your family's legal team. They wanted the access log. I felt the heat drain from my face. Henry stood up from the table, chair legs screeching against the tile. You think they're coming here? I'd bet money on it, Mara said. They're not going to wait for the courts. They want to control the narrative before anything becomes official. I glanced at Grandma, still sleeping, still oblivious to the war being waged in her name. They can't touch the box now, right? I asked. Mara nodded. Correct. It's under temporary court hold pending review, but that won't stop them from pushing everything else, pressuring you, intimidating Henry, playing the victim card. They're good at that, I muttered. She paused. You might want to consider going public. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? A press release, even a recorded statement. You control the timeline, Emma, the story. My voice cracked. It's not a story. It's my grandmother's life. Mara didn't flinch. And that's exactly why they'll spin it into something else. I couldn't breathe. Every part of me wanted to run, but that part was outnumbered now, by the girl who had knelt at Grandma's feet at that station, by the woman who'd opened that safe. I was still standing there, processing everything, when my phone rang. Again. But this time, it wasn't blocked. Linda. I picked up. Emma, listen to me, Mom said, her voice low and fast. Your father's lost it. He thinks the whole will is a setup. I blinked. What? He says you and Grandma and Henry planned this, fabricated documents, forged her signature. He's unraveling Emma. He's talking to lawyers, threatening to sue the bank. My pulse raced. Why are you telling me this? Because I can't keep lying for him. There was a pause, a long, painful silence that carried years in it. I found the old deed in his study, she said. The one Rose gave him before she changed her mind. He kept it, marked it up, wrote out plans for the land like it already belonged to him. I closed my eyes. He wanted to build on it, flip it. That's why he pushed the power of attorney. Not to care for her, but to liquidate her. Her voice cracked at that word. Liquidate. I gripped the phone tighter. Why are you really calling? A breath, sharp and shaky. I emailed Mara everything I found, she said. Scans, dates, the fake physician's note. I'm done covering for him. I couldn't tell if I felt relief or betrayal, maybe both. He'll know it was you, I said quietly. I don't care. Another pause. Emma, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. I just hung up and stared at the far wall like it might split open and swallow all of this whole. Mara's phone pinged a second later. She checked it, eyes widening. You won't believe this, she said. She turned the screen toward me. It was an email from Linda Carter with 6 attachments. I scanned the preview. images of signed property transfer forms, internal family documents. One even had my name listed next to Grandma's under alternate beneficiaries. "I'm in the will," I whispered. Henry leaned against the wall, face unreadable. "Rose always knew you'd be the only one who showed up when it counted." Mara tapped the screen. "This changes everything. James can't claim ignorance anymore, and if he tries anything, this goes straight to the DA. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty, like I'd just crossed a line I could never walk back from. I went outside for air. The parking lot was quiet, just the hum of a vending machine and a distant barking dog somewhere beyond the fence. The sun was fading behind a strip of heavy clouds, casting everything in bruised gray light. I sat on the curb, elbows on my knees. Mom had betrayed him, but why now? Why not years ago? Why did it take this unraveling, for her to remember she had a spine? The answer hit me before I could stop it, because she never cared who got hurt, as long as it wasn't her. The motel room door opened behind me. I didn't turn. Mara sat down beside me, uninvited. "You okay?" I shook my head. "No." She was quiet a moment. Then, "You've done more in a week than some people manage in years." I swallowed hard. "He's not going to stop." "No," she said, "but now he's cornered, and cornered people show their true colors." We both sat there as the sky darkened. Then the motel phone inside rang, loud, abrupt. I stood up and hurried in, heart already thudding. Henry answered before I could. His face changed. He held the phone out to me, his voice low. "It's James." I took it slowly. "Emma," Dad said, "you've made your point." His voice was strained, flat. "You've ruined everything," he added, "but I'm not going to let you burn the rest." "What does that mean?" I asked. "You want a war? Fine, but don't expect to walk away clean." And then in the background, a faint female voice, "James, stop. She's still your daughter. Linda." And then the line went dead. But the echo of Dad's voice lingered like a slap. "You want a war? Fine, but don't expect to walk away clean." For a moment, all I could hear was my own breath, too loud, too shallow, rattling in the silence of that motel room. Henry stepped closer, hand hovering near my shoulder. "Emma?" I couldn't answer. Not yet. My thoughts were sprinting, tripping over each other. He didn't sound angry. He sounded final. Mara paced near the dresser, one hand gripping her phone so tight her knuckles had gone pale. "We need to move. Now. He's not bluffing." "Where would he even go?" I asked, my voice cracking. "He doesn't need to go anywhere," she said. "He'll force you to come to him." "How?" She turned to me, voice low and grim. "He knows what you care about most." My stomach dropped. I turned to the bed. Grandma was gone. The blanket was folded. Her purse missing. Her scarf. Her shoes gone. Henry swore, loudly. "She couldn't have just walked out." "She didn't," I whispered. "She was taken." The room spun. My legs nearly gave out. Mara was already dialing. "I'll put out a bolo. Pull security footage. There's no way they could have gotten far." Henry grabbed his keys. "We checked the gas stations, side roads. She might have fought back." No, she wouldn't have. If he told her what she wanted to hear, if he pretended to be her son again, the way she remembered him before the betrayals, she would have followed. The realization crushed something in me. I sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the empty pillow. "She trusted him once," I said. "That's all it would have taken." Mara stepped outside to coordinate with local deputies. Henry slammed the door behind him, off on his own hunt. And I sat there alone in that too quiet room, hearing nothing but memory. She won't even notice we're gone. I'd believed that once too, until she proved me wrong, until she remembered me, remembered us. My phone buzzed. Blocked number. I didn't pick up. Instead, I checked the motel's front desk security feed. Mara had pulled it up on her tablet earlier. I scrubbed back through the last hour, and there it was, Grandma, at the vending machine, talking to someone in a dark gray hoodie. She looked calm, confused maybe, but not afraid. Then she walked out of frame, alone, not dragged, not pushed. She chose to go. The timestamp was 15 minutes before Dad's call. I replayed it, again and again, and every time my throat got tighter. It was him. I knew the shape of that posture, knew the slight limp he tried to hide after a skiing accident in '09. knew the way he carried his weight on the balls of his feet when he was lying. He'd been there the whole time, and she'd walked with him willingly. I sent the footage to Mara. She called seconds later. We traced a vehicle leaving town heading west, matching the SUV description. No plates. They ditched the GPS near Fairpine. That's about 20 miles out. He'll go somewhere isolated, I said. Old family property? There's a cabin, I remembered. Dad's father's old place near Wolf Creek. Grandma hated it, but he always said he'd fix it up someday. Mara was already moving. Send me the coordinates. I hung up and grabbed my bag. Inside it, Grandma's envelope. I hadn't opened it yet. I wanted her to be beside me when I did. But now, I slid my finger under the flap, slowly, heart racing. Inside, a single handwritten letter. Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Or near enough. You were the only one who stayed. The only one who saw me as more than a burden. There are things I never told you. Things about James. About your mother. The land is yours. That's what the new deed says. Henry has the original. The box held copies. But more than that, there's something I left in the barn's safe. Something that explains everything. Not just about James's schemes, but what happened to George. I'm sorry I waited this long. I thought I had more time. I thought memory was mine to lose on my terms. I was wrong. Love always, Grandma. I stood frozen, the page trembling in my hands. What happened to George? He didn't die of natural causes? Had she been carrying that secret all this time? I folded the letter and tucked it back in the envelope, chest heaving. The barn safe. Mara came bursting through the door. We're leaving now. I grabbed the bag, stuffed the envelope inside. We peeled out of the lot, gravel spitting beneath the tires. As we drove, I kept one hand on the door handle like I needed something to anchor me. Mara didn't speak much, just the occasional update from dispatch in her earpiece. Then her voice changed. They found the vehicle. I sat up. Where? She didn't answer. She just turned off the main road and headed straight into the woods. The gravel road narrowed into shadows. Pine trees blurred past the windshield as Mara's car twisted through the hills, her fingers locked on the wheel, eyes scanning for movement. The last orange threads of daylight bled into the clouds. I hadn't spoken in miles, because all I could think about was that letter. There's something I left in the barn safe, something that explains everything. And now, Grandma was with him. We reached the clearing by the old Carter cabin just before dusk. It looked like a skeleton of its former self. Half-rotted porch, windows like eyes gouged out, the wind rattling a broken screen door. Mara killed the engine. I'll go around back, she said. I nodded and stepped out slowly, my shoes crunching on dry twigs. A single light glowed in the front window. Inside, I saw them. Grandma sitting in a wooden chair by the fireplace, her hands folded neatly in her lap, and Dad standing behind her, not touching her, just looming. I pushed the door open. The wood groaned under my weight. My throat tightened. He looked at me like I was an inconvenience. You always did show up too late, he said. I came for her, I said, stepping in. I'm taking her home. He laughed softly. Home? Emma, there is no home anymore. You ruined that when you dragged the past into the spotlight. She deserved the truth. His jaw twitched. She doesn't even know the truth. I glanced at Grandma. Her eyes met mine. For a moment I saw it. Clarity. She knew. She remembered. And she was scared. Don't, I said, stepping between them. Dad sighed and walked toward the fireplace, picked up a poker and turned it lazily in his hands. You think that letter in the safe explains anything? I didn't answer. Your grandfather didn't die of a heart attack, he said suddenly. The words knocked the air out of me. He found out I'd forged the deed, that I'd tried to sell off land behind Rose's back, said he'd turn me in. The poker clinked softly against the stones, so I pushed him. One step, one stupid drunk push down the stairs. I stared at him. You killed him. No, he said, his voice rising. I silenced someone who was going to destroy everything we built. He pointed the poker at me. And now you're doing the same thing. The back door creaked open. Mara stepped in with her gun raised. Drop it! Dad turned, startled, but he didn't drop the poker. Instead, he lunged. I tackled him before he could swing. We crashed into the coffee table, splinters and dust exploding around us. His elbow jabbed my ribs. My fingers clawed for his wrist. "Get off me!" he roared. Mara moved fast. She pinned him, yanked the poker free, and snapped the cuffs around his wrists before he could recover. He lay on the floor, chest heaving, eyes glassy with hate. "It was never yours," I said quietly. "Not the land, not the legacy, not her." He didn't answer, didn't have to. I turned to Grandma. She was crying now, silent, trembling tears, but she stood. She walked to me slowly, then took my hand. And for the first time in years, she said my name, clearly. Emma. We left the cabin that night as sirens whined in the distance. Mara called it in, and within the hour, they had Dad in custody and the cabin sealed off. The rest unraveled fast. Linda cooperated with the investigation, the forged medical records, the fake power of attorney, the withdrawn funds, all of it tied back to him. 3 days later, I returned to the barn. The sun was warm that morning, golden through the slats. Dust hung in the air like time standing still. I unlocked the safe one last time. Inside, beside the folders and photos, was a journal, Grandma's handwriting. I sat on the floor and read it, page by page. She'd known about George. She'd buried the truth for years to protect me, protect what was left of the family. But most of all, she wrote about hope, that someday someone would come back. Someone who'd remember her not as a burden, but as a woman who loved fiercely, even when her memory failed. That someone was me. The land is in my name now, not just on paper, in spirit. We repaired the farmhouse. Henry visits every Sunday. Abby's coming next month with her kids. Grandma still forgets things, but not me, not anymore. Sometimes we walk the fields in silence. Sometimes she hums a song she swears she wrote herself, and sometimes she says my name with tears in her eyes, and I know she remembers everything that matters. Here's what I've learned. Family can betray you, love can hurt you, but the truth will set you free, even if it tears everything else apart first. Thanks for walking this journey with me. If this story moved you, hit subscribe, like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below. Have you ever had to choose truth over family? And if you want more stories like this, don't miss the next video.